Yeah, hey, it's Phil coming at you again, man. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. I definitely appreciate you for sure. This time we're going to wrap up the pump, right? We're going to finish everything. We're going to button it up. We're going to close it. I'll show you how to stuff the pump. Basically, putting all the parts in your rotor and your slide. I'll show you some technique on putting the slide spring in. We're using a dual slide spring, right? So we're not going to get any chatter of, the pressure deviating, changing on and off. So it's a little tight to put in, but I'll show you this really cool technique that I like to use, and I think it works really well, and it's simple. Also, aligning the pump, right? When we put the stator half and the body half together, it's really important that both of those line up really perfect. I have a fancy tool to use. I'll do it that way, but I'm also going to show you a technique where you don't need any tool. So again, it'll be really simple. So yeah, we'll finish up the pump this time. So look over my shoulder. And yeah, let's hang out, and please like and subscribe, and let's get to it. Gonna put our pump half together. Here's the original 7 vanes. As you can see, mine are in pretty garbagey shape. Again, mine had some water in it, that kind of thing. So we're gonna go ahead and replace the vanes along with the slide O-ring and the pump O-ring. And it also had double springs for the slide. We're going to go ahead and replace those with some from our shift kit. And of course, our old Teflon and our old seal. We'll go ahead and get rid of those. We will, however, use the pin as well as the very small spring. We'll use those from our stock setup, as they are fine. Also, our guide plate. It's old. It's flimsy. It's really cheap to replace. It's plastic. Just do yourself a favor and replace it. As we know from previously, the pump rings, these often break. It's a very weak point in our pump, and these are what actually kills the pump, right? It'll cause the scoring, that kind of thing. Even if yours are okay, like mine are, get rid of them without a doubt. Use some hardened ones. This way they're not going to crack, and they're not going to dump and basically kill your pump by breaking and scratching it up. So again, this is mandatory, right? Always use the hardened pump rings. Next up, let's stuff the pump. The pump half. Go ahead and put our parts onto it. Now what we have is we have our slide, and we have our slide ring, and we also have our O-ring. So inside of the slide, we'll put our O-ring, and then on top of that, we'll put our slide ring. Right, so what we want to do is take some trans gel. That's going to help hold the O-ring in there. You want to make sure that it's not twisted. Right, you don't want a twisted O-ring. So just go ahead and put that into the slot. Again, making sure that it is not twisted. Right, we don't want it twisted. Very important. Right, take some trans gel. Put it on our sides, again, so it doesn't fall out. And by the way, I'm using the red trans gel, just transmission assembly lube. Temperature-wise, it's okay in here as I'm working, but if it's too hot or too cold, you might find yourself using the blue or using the green color. Sometimes people like to use the blue or green color also, because transmission fluid is red, obviously, and the blue highlights, where you put the lube versus the fluid. Same thing with the green, of course. So again, I'm just going to lube up my slide ring, put it onto there. Again, nothing dry. We don't want anything dry. Okay, once you got your slide ring onto there, That, of course, goes on the bottom, right? That's why we're putting the lube there, because when we flip it over, we don't want it to fall out, because that would be bad. Right, so make sure it's got plenty on there. Then the next thing we want to do is take your seal, right, your rubber seal, and also your Teflon seal. Go ahead and get that on there as well. This is what rides on the outside of the slide. Then what you want to do, take this half moon, put it by the hole there. Make sure your Teflon's lined up real good. Now you'll take your spring, little tiny spring, that goes here. Make sure it goes all the way down into the hole. I'll just use a drill bit, push it down. Make sure she's all the way down. And then you'll want to take your slide pin, give it some lube. And of course that goes right here into the hole. Just push back. And again, make sure that it goes all the way down. And make sure you get a little spring back as well. All right, so now we have our slide mounted. Again, we have the Teflon on the outside, the white Teflon, and the black rubber seal on the inside, and our slide pin over here. Next thing we want to do is take our springs. There's a couple different ways to do this. Again, I'm using this from the CK Shift Kit, along with the other parts. And what you want to do is that spring needs to ride in here, in this pocket. In here. And there's a couple different ways to do it. We could take a screwdriver, for example, and we can kind of wedge it in. Or you could take a clamp, you can squeeze it, and you could drive it home that way as well. Easiest way is just take a C-clamp. Go ahead and clamp our spring down. Get her compressed. Gradually work it to the end. You can see it's almost in there. Now what you want to do is just work it in. The final bit. Helps to use a screwdriver, for example. Just work it down there. There you go. That's the easiest way. Again, just to kind of squish it in there. Hey, how about taking a second, like and subscribe, huh? Come on. Show some love. Let's get our spring in there. Let's go ahead and lube everything up. Again, this is the pump, so no harm in having some lube down there, right? Definitely don't want to be dry. Now the next thing we have, of course, we have our rings and we have our rotor and we have our guide. Some trans gel on our guide. Now, of course, we have our rotor. Again, the bottom has these little notches in there. And that's where our guide actually sits, right? The plastic guide has notches also. What you want to do is put those notches in the notches. The notches in the notches. And again, the trans lube holds that on there. Then take one of your hardened pump rings, right? The hardened ones. You don't want to use the ones that came with it, because when they break, they're going to take out your pump and it's going to be a bad day at the office. Go ahead and lube up your slide, your ring, I'm sorry. And your ring goes like so, right on there. And again, get some gel on the rotor. And your rotor goes down, again with your ring. Right, and that guide actually sits inside where the bushing is. Right, that's where your plastic guide is going to ride. And then, of course, we have our top ring. It's going to sit on there. And now we're going to put the vanes into the pump. And again, we're using a stock one. So we're going to use 7 vanes. Some people like to use 10. Some like 13. I'm not a 13 fan myself. But again, I know a lot of people are using the 10 ones. But we're using stock setup, and we already measured in the previous video. So we know what our clearances are. It's a little more than I want it to be, but again, it is what it is. And you're going to want to pop them in there. Make sure they don't get caught up. Next one. And our last one. And you want to make sure that they're all in the hole. As you can see, I have 2 here that are not in the hole. So we're going to want to move those out. Make sure they're all the way in. Now you can see they're all the way in. Life is good. And just make sure that it rotates freely. And again, there's never a problem with too much oil. After all, that's what your pump is doing, right? It's pumping the oil. So go ahead and lube her up really good. And make sure that that rotor rotates nice and smooth. And you can even hear it. So we know we're getting good suction. Hey, how about taking a second, like and subscribe, huh? Come on, show some love. And get her some more lube in her. Now what we want to do is take our stator half, and we're going to put our stator half down on top of her. Again, nothing wrong with lubing up those valves down there. Again, this tran's going to sit for a while before we mount it into our vehicle. So we'll make sure everything's nice and lubed, nothing dry. Remember, before we drilled out this one, and we also drilled out that one, so that helps us get the alignment. Right, so we want to get our alignment here, like so. And we'll push her down. And you can see the bolt holes are right over there. Now what we need is something to hold our pump while we're doing this. Remember before when we took it apart in one of our earlier videos, we had just a 2x6 that we had cut. And of course, one of the holes was big enough. So what we'll do is we'll mount this into our vise, and then we'll bring our pump over and torque everything down. So go ahead, bring our pump over there. And of course, it fits nicely right into the hole that we made for it. And we're lined up. What we want to do is take our 5 pump bolts and lube them up a little bit. A little transmission fluid makes a nice lube. Go ahead and start them in the holes. Now once you get this tightened, right, you got your 5 bolts up here. We're going to torque them down in a second. But notice the 5 bolts, and it's just slightly loose. Right here is where the 2 pieces meet, right? Your stator half and your pump half. And you can see kind of that they can slide. I don't know if, let's see if we can get you guys in for a better shot there. Right, see how that the halves move? Right, so they're not aligned up perfectly, but they need to be lined up perfectly. Otherwise, you're not going to have a good seal, and there's going to be all kinds of headaches. So there's a couple different ways to get that alignment just right. If you're really good, you could do it with your fingernail. Right, you could actually feel if there's a lip there or there isn't, going all the way around as you tighten 1 bolt at a time. 1 bolt, 1 bolt, 1 bolt, and just keep going around and keep feeling with your fingernail until you don't feel anything. Then you know that you're perfectly aligned. Right here you could tell, oh, you know, you can feel it with your fingernail that, well, it's pretty obvious in that case that it's not there. But you can also get a band clamp. You know, like for a radiator hose, right, they have clamps. Well, there's also some for like HVAC, right, your air conditioning. So you could see it like a Home Depot or a Lowe's. You can get one of the larger ones. What you want to do is get like a 6-inch and then get like a 3 or a 4-inch, or get a 7-inch and get a 3 and a 4-inch. So you want to be about 8, 9, 10 inches in diameter, right, around the circle, right? Diameter is this direction, I guess. So wouldn't that be circumference, I guess? Area? Yeah, whatever it is. But anyway, you want a piece that's about 10 or 11 or 9 or let's say between 9 and 11 inches long, so that it wraps around the entire thing. And then we can tighten it, just tighten the band so that the band is right over here in between the 2 pieces. And if you tighten it, it's going to pull them in really close, and then you're going to be safe, right? It's going to be perfectly aligned. That's one way to do it. Here's some of those clamps I was talking about. So again, you can just get this at a Home Depot or a Lowe's. This one's obviously too small, as is this one. But what you do is you join 2 of them together, and then you'd bring them and you'd go around the pump housing, and that would get you there. They also make this professional one that I actually got my hands on. You could see the diameter is about 10 inches. And again, that fits around the pump. And we can actually tighten that on, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So what we can do is we could take that band and wrap it around. Again, we're going to want to wrap it right where that piece moves, right? So in between that gap. What you want to do is come in, put that band on, find where that gap is. Let's loosen her up a little. Get her all the way around the pump. So that she's on there. And then what we want to do is tighten her. Yeah, I know, Craftsman, I'm a fanboy, yada, yada, yada. Then what you want to do is tighten it down. And when she's tightened, then you know for a fact that it's aligned. Once you get the band on there, what we're going to do is torque her down. Down to 18 foot-pounds is a good torque. You could use that type of wrench, or maybe you're on the low budget scale, in which case you can use this type of torque wrench. Obviously, either one will work, but you'll want to use a 3/8. Don't use a 1/2, because obviously that would be too big. And go around, torque them all. After they're all torqued down, go ahead and take your band clamp off. Get that guy removed. And again, you want to make sure, as we said, you can't feel it with your fingernail. So again, our alignment is spot on. So no issues. Now our pump is done. What you'd want to do now is mount it onto a torque converter and just give it a good spin and make sure that your pump is working. I don't have a torque converter to connect it to, so I won't be able to make that check, but hopefully you'll be able to. One other way we can do our alignment of the pump, if you don't want to support your local Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, or don't want to get those bands. Yeah, these studs are M8 by 1.25 threads. That's metric, and it's about a 3.5 inch length. And all I did was cut the hex head off and rounded it off on the grinder. And I'll just screw 2 of those into our case, across from each other. And what we could do is use the case itself as an alignment tool. What you'll want to do is take your pump, turn it upside down, right? Normally it goes inside your case like this. But in this case, we'll turn it upside down since that's where our bolts are. And what you want to do is just put it over your studs. This way you have something to torque on, or something that'll hold it as you torque it. And what you can do is put it in upside down. And what happens is, if we could get the alignment just right, this becomes an alignment tool, right? It's going to hold both halves actually just right. Now what you'll be able to do is just take your torque wrench. And again, since we have it mounted on the 2 studs, it probably works better than the vise. So you can just torque down. And again, this works just as well as the band does, and it might even be a little bit easier for you. Again, the reason being, the 2 halves are going to fit inside the case so that it seals both sides and gives you the perfect alignment. So again, that's just another way for you to do it if you didn't want to use the band way, or you don't have the band support tool. All right, she's all assembled. So the next thing we want to do is take our O-ring. It has a stripe on the side. And you want to install this onto the side. If you look on the side of the pump, there's a groove. It runs all the way around the pump. That's where your O-ring goes. So we want to lube that up really nice. Go ahead and take our fluid, mix it into our sloppy cup, and go ahead and just lube up the O-ring. Again, we never want to do anything dry on the tranny. When in doubt, give it some lube. Right, and then take your pump on its side, and of course you want to install the O-ring with the orange part, in my case, out. And make sure that it's not twisted. Twisted is not good. Right, and just go all the way around. Get it installed. Again, making sure that it's not twisted. I think that's the purpose of the orange line, actually. Right, so if you can see the orange line all the way around, you know you're good, you know you're not twisted. Don't forget to install your governor screen assembly. It's this triangle screen, of course. Usually it falls right out when you take the pump out of the transmission. And where does it go? Well, you can see here's the hole for our filter over there. And right here, you can see it's very obvious. There's a indentation where it actually fits in. Again, it goes in this middle hole right next to the filter screen. What you want to do is put a lot of transmission lube onto it. Again, we want it to stay in place because obviously if we don't put this on, it's gonna fall right out. Go ahead and insert it into the hole. And a little lube to hold her in. This way she doesn't pop out on us when we tip it over. That would be bad. And last thing again, we want to put this into a bag. In my case, it's going to sit around for a while until I actually get it into the transmission. So what I do is I just take a regular plastic bag. This one's from Giant, yeah. Yeah, in New York, you can't get a plastic bag. Go figure. I got to import them from Pennsylvania. Anyway, take your pump, go ahead and put it into the plastic bag. And let's go ahead and store that. This way no garbage gets into it until we're ready to install it. And then we could use it again.